John is a life teacher, speaker, Billboard charting singer-songwriter, healer, and author with a passion for music, community, expansion, and limitless love and light. He currently serves as founder of Polyplat Records, partner at Healing Arts Management and ConsciousSongwritingRetreat.com. He is the host of the Alignment podcast and the co-host of the Awaken Pillow Talk podcast with his wife, Kathy Stringer. John has written and recorded several singles and albums over the years, including a co-written Billboard Top 10 charting song with his former rock band, State of Man. He has spoken and performed for events and venues throughout the world, and he shares this message of alignment through songs featured on his debut solo album, Limitless Love and Light, and featuring the Posse Award-nominated songs, You Are Welcome Here and That's Love, on his follow-up album, Moment to Moment, as well as thought-inspired teachings, some of which can be found in his book, The Abundance Vibration and Guide to Alignment. All of these materials are over here on the table for you. For upcoming events, books, audio recordings, videos, online courses, and guidance sessions, which are fabulous. He is a wonderful channel and guider. Please visit johnstringer.com. And without further ado, here's my spiritual brother, John Stringer.
Thank you so much. This is actually a song that was in the public domain. I grew up singing it as a spiritual and rewrote it to represent love. There have been times in my life I felt so alone. I had no one to call my own. But then you came my way just to let me know I've always got a place I can call my own. When my life was bound in chains, well, you set me free. You are making way for me. So when my life was bound in chains, you set me free. You are making a way for me. Well, see, sometimes on this road, things get so bad, you often feel downhearted and blue. But when you need me the most, you know I'll always come through. I'll do everything that I say that I'll do. So when your life is bound in chains, I'll set you free. I am making way for you and me. When your life is bound in chains, you know I'll set you free. I am making a way for you
Black history and oneness. Only love can do that. As I was asking what to share after going through wonderful classes at Morehouse College, returning to school to finish a degree I'd left almost 30 years behind, returned as a senior last fall, and was reminded why I ever wanted to go to Morehouse in the first place. For those unfamiliar, Morehouse College in Atlanta was the alma mater of one of our leaders in the civil rights movement, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., class of 1948, yes. So, returning, I was reminded of the mission of Morehouse, to develop men of disciplined minds who are servants, men of consequence. When I look at Martin Luther King Jr., I remember many things, but I remember in 7th grade, after getting ceremoniously removed, is my recollection, my mother's recollection is, I was given a new opportunity. I think I'm leaning more towards her direction now. Given a new opportunity to leave a private school and go to a public school in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where I got a chance to learn civil rights history for the first time. Prior to that, I'd grown up in that private school all the way to 7th grade, leaving 8th grade and 9th grade. I was impacted by Martin Luther King Jr.'s life, his contribution, his dedication, his speeches, and most importantly, his message. I realized the sacrifices that were made for people of a different skin color to be able to get a great education, to be able to vote, so many different things. And what it helped me do is decide not to take it for granted. At that time, I realized I had had a beautiful private education that many people had sacrificed a lot, even blood, to allow me to go to. And I didn't want to trample that blood. So turned things around. Long story short, ended up getting a scholarship back to the very school that I had left. And it was because of Martin Luther King Jr. and all of those who joined with them. See, Martin Luther King Jr. was the face. One of his famous speeches, he talked about listening to the drum major, right? He was marching to that beat that he could hear that transcended man's collective wisdom of the time. He was asking a simple question. It's a question many of us may be familiar with. What is mine to do? He was asking that drum major, some people point to in the sky. We talk about the drum major within. What is mine to do? So when I asked, going back to Morehouse, being re-inspired by the mission and realizing that the history I was learning, I wasn't so sure a lot of people knew, because I didn't know it even when I went back to in 7th grade. I asked, what is mine to do about this? I was sparked once again. Having lived a life of spiritual practice and hearing these principles and then looking back to history, there was this challenge. What is the value of looking at history where there are things that don't feel good and exposing those things and bringing them to light. What is the value of that? As the mission said, we want to feel joy, right? Well, some of these things did not bring me joy, let me just say. Many of these things brought tears and realizations, but also understanding. I'll read this to you. The goal is to educate others on a history that is little known and explain why economic and political power have been areas of focus in the move toward human equality. Yes. This is the message that needs to be explained to many. How this coincides with spiritual principle is that the goal of love is that all are provided for. All are given opportunity and all are valued. The challenge is when past intentions, structures, and systems have been created to marginalize, set aside as less than, and oppress, healing must take place. Recognize or recognition must begin to shift the policies, systems, and actions to meet the needs of the human family. It's the same worldwide. The policies that don't reflect meeting the needs are the challenge before us. Yes, all is well and always is, yes. And education, awareness is key in order to meet our needs. Question. Are there still agendas to oppress? To continue the ignorance, to ensure that change does not occur? Yes, and that's okay. Historically, that has been the issue. However, in this dimension, love will prevail. Love will succeed when we take it upon ourselves to ask, what is ours to do? What is mine to do? Mine is to educate, to share, to tell the story so that it can be seen differently. You know how the principle or the teaching that if you have unconscious behaviors and triggers in your life, there may be something from your past, some trauma, some conditioning that's causing it. And then when you bring awareness to that, you can actually release it. It's the same in collective consciousness. When we bring our awareness to what has transpired, we can shift the collective together, bring that wonderful salve of healing. So let's take a little journey. In his 60-minute interview on September 27th, 1966, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. answers the question, why do Negroes in America find it so difficult to pull themselves up when other oppressed groups of his time, like Jews, Irish, and Italians, were able to pull themselves up? He gave the following two reasons. I'm gonna try not to imitate him. It's hard, but no other racial group has been a slave on American soil. It's nice to say other people were down and they got up. They were not slaves on American soil. The other thing is the Negro has had high visibility, and because of the prejudice existing in this country, his color has been against him. It's been against him, and they've used this to keep him from moving up. In the final analysis, when you say to a man that you are in this position because of your race or because of your color, you say to that man that he can never get out of it. Other racial groups have been able to maybe change their accent or change names, but the Negro can't. What he was pointing out was Irish, German, Italian, Jew could come to this country, change their names, which was popular, change their accents, and assimilate, and look just like those who were oppressing, just like those who were calling them other. But if you had dark skin color, you couldn't do that. You could try. It just didn't work. High visibility. What that created was not only the separation or appearance of separation through oppression, through prejudice, it created actual obstacles that we have seen play out. He also talked about that one defining difference, slavery. Some call it chattel slavery. That one defining difference, that history has an interesting mark on our collective psychology. And that is where I believe the opportunity lies. Yes, worldwide, we've seen these wonderful plays of separation in different ways. This is just a microcosm. This is just part of our human history, part of our family. But why look at that part? It's almost like if you grow up in a family, proximity. It's easier to love those closest to you, right? That you call family. Even though we're all one, when it comes to feeding and taking care of your family, where do you start? At home. So we're going to start at home in the U.S. just to take a look at the microcosm that reflects the whole. So the history, as many of you may know, 1619 is where they track slavery beginning in the U.S. And then through that whole period, all the way up until 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation declaring the southern states who were still rebelling, setting those slaves free, right? Not all slaves, just the slaves that in the southern states that were still rebelling because it was during the Civil War. 2 years later is when the 13th Amendment was passed, January 1865. Finally, outlawing slavery in the United States. I remember learning last fall in one of my classes, the newly freed slaves felt like, oh wow, we got opportunity. There was one man quoted as saying, we felt like we could use our skills, our hands as artisans, as farmers, and finally cultivate land, freedom, and build our own lives. If you've heard of the 40 acres and a mule, which is really an order for 40 acres, but they gave some army mules to a couple of families, right? So it started being called 40 acres and a mule. That actually happened. It was declared, ordered. Families began to receive, newly freed slaves receive this land. They were going to give it throughout the East Coast, redistribute a lot of the southern land from the Confederates. And wouldn't you know, Lincoln gets assassinated, right? So, months after, actually. So, Andrew Johnson comes in, the vice president at the time, and just repeals everything. What ends up happening? That land gets taken back. And all of those, it was over 3.9 million approximately slaves that had been set free in the South who thought they had an opportunity, and the government was telling them, we got you. You need land, self-sufficiency, etc. We got you. And all of a sudden it flip-flops. Nope, you can't have it. We're not going to unfairly create a situation where you're favored more than the white people. Give them their land back. And at the same time, mind you, they were giving away land in the West and allowing people to migrate there, except for the blacks for the most part. So this interesting dichotomy of separation is what you begin to see, and it keeps repeating. The Freedmen's Bureau, you see it there. Freedmen's Bureau sets up this beautiful bank, Freedmen's Bank. Freedmen's Bank, they were on a mission to help these newly freed slaves understand building wealth. Interestingly enough, they created Freedmen's Bank to be a savings bank, but not an investment bank. What's important about that? Others were able to go to a bank, walk in and say, hey, I need to buy some land to build a farm, or I need to build a house, or what have you, and could get credit, loans. Freedmen's Bank, no loans, no credit. So you couldn't build wealth that way. What you could do is save, put your investment in, and keep saving. And they taught them savings, a glorified savings bank. Imagine going to the bank and saying, I want to buy a $250,000 house. Great, start saving here. Once you get to $250,000, buy your house. That's pretty much what was going on. Now, what's amazing is this bank was highly successful. In that time, they end up raising $75 million. That's like 3-point-something billion now from slaves. That's it. The average, I think it's estimated the average deposit was $50. You're talking about people that came from nothing, just got set free. Somehow they scraped up $50 to deposit all around the South. Next thing you know, 75 million is sitting in the coffers. Amazing, right? And introduce corruption. Disappointment. These slaves had been promised, hey, this is your way to self-reliance and wealth. All of a sudden, the owners decided to invest it in speculative railroad investments that went bust and many other things. Long story short, it got fleeced and 65 million disappeared. And all of these slaves were like, what the heck? And the government did not persecute anyone. So once again, you've got newly freed slaves. All right, we're going to take care of you. We're going to give you something to help you. Nope, take it back. By this time, what do you think the psychology was for this part of our population when it came to government? Can't trust them, right? They already were in a position where they had gone through over 150 plus years of inferiority, being conditioned. You are less than, you are cattle. Suddenly getting freed, okay, we're going to take care of you. Here's some land. You have an opportunity. No. Okay, we're going to teach you how to build wealth, how to do like the rest of the no. Taken back. I can't even imagine the disappointment. But what that did was wiped out the beginnings of a lot of wealth. Why can't the Negro in America pull himself up like others? $75 million was a lot of pulling up. Especially in that time. So let's fast forward. It's not all terrible. It doesn't feel good to look at, but it's not all terrible because there was resilience. Even in the midst of these trying times, even in the midst of all sorts of violence, legal oppression, there were bright spots. There's always bright spots. Even in a pandemic, there's always light. So what's the bright spots? Number one, there were many who sought ways to thrive in this adversity, even in the disappointment. It created an economic detour. What's an economic detour? Well, that's when you cannot participate in the main economy. Suddenly you begin to see black insurance companies. Actually, it started with the churches. It started with mutual beneficial aid societies where they would collect and pool money, kind of like the susus of back in the day in different cultures, the gifting circles. They would create these wonderful ways to create their own economy. And they would support one another. They would take care of primarily funeral expenses. Started off that way. But then it developed. Suddenly in Durham, North Carolina, you get North Carolina Mutual, developed from mutual aid societies to insurance companies to take care of those who couldn't get insured any other way. Next thing you know, North Carolina Mutual goes national, millions of dollars. In fact, it didn't end until recently during the pandemic. It lasted for ages, employed many luminaries I got to learn about. C.C. Spalding wrote books about management. They had offices everywhere. This is in a time where you're still getting lynched. These guys found a way. That's resilience. The human spirit cannot be stopped. The light cannot be snuffed out. Now, granted, there was a lot of atrocities, a lot of sadness, but I believe the darkness, the darker it gets, the brighter the light shines. Love and light is what we are at our essence. Now, mind you, it's easy to think, and that's just a drop in the bucket history-wise. I could keep going, but I'm going to wrap this up. It's easy to think with all the things we've seen in our history, as you begin to uncover them and unfold them, it's easy to think, wow, those people or these people, or see them as other. What I'm inviting you to is spiritual principle, to recognize you are not part of one side or the other. You are part of it all. Their consciousness, whichever side you think it is your consciousness. That's oneness. All consciousness is our consciousness. So many of us with this skin color identify with the story of those who were oppressed. However, the oppressor is our consciousness. Many of those who don't have this skin color identify with those who are oppressed. However, all consciousness is your consciousness. That's oneness. That's principle. Why is that important? Because it helps heal the blame game. Helps let go of the victimization. Helps us transform into victors, to see these perfect ingredients as opportunities for love and self-forgiveness. To recognize in ourselves when we look at the other and marginalize. When we look at the other and hold them as less than or even greater than, we begin to look at our own consciousness, how it shows up, and choose differently. What is mine to do? That's the question. What is mine to do? Just as we must undo programming and release misperceptions that cause suffering in our lives, we can release the misperceptions of collective consciousness by calling on the intercessor, the corrector, Ruach, the Holy Spirit, to lead us and correct our thinking. Asking what is yours to do is the most important thing you can ask when it comes to these opportunities of love, opportunities for collective healing. So, as I mentioned, this is just a small part. We're still feeling the separation in consciousness, many of us, that created such stories, such actions, such division. We're still seeing the tentacles and feeling its impact in ways that are not necessarily recognized. From the gap in wealth to the challenges in healthcare and education, property values, etc. It's still something in need of addressing. How can you do it? I believe it starts with spiritual principle. We are all one. Black history is your history. White history, our history. American history, indigenous history, German, Irish, French, Italian, world history. It's your history. All consciousness is our consciousness. The stories, the illusions, the victories and tragedies. What we must do is turn our attention to these stories in our own backyard and then do the cleaning work. We get to choose the quality of the experience we create by the quality of thought we choose. In this case, we will create reconciliation and forgiveness through our thoughts. So what's the relevance? The relevance is that we have an opportunity to address this and more in ways that bring healing into the conversation. In other words, that shift our perspectives to be in alignment with that which Source is seeking for us to realize as love. For those who wish to join in healing a wound that takes the collective love of humanity to heal, not that there's a problem to fix. There is no problem to fix, but there is an opportunity to give love to part of our consciousness that holds on to the trauma. We are here to release that trauma through the corrective power of the I Am, the Holy Spirit, love itself. Only love can do that. So I invite you to ask that question. What's mine to do? Where is separation in my life showing up? How am I marginalizing? Where am I missing the opportunity for love? It may be self. It may be correcting the misperception that you are somehow inferior, somehow unable. It may be recognizing that you have forgotten who you are to be as an extension of the great I Am itself. It may be cultivating that ability to hear your drum major, to share your gift with the world, so that another little John Stringer can be inspired by your example. What is mine to do? I also invite those who would like to embark on this healing journey with my wife and I to join us for a 3-week transformation experience to do exactly that. The transformation experience is called Aligned Relationships. Only love can do that. It's a love donation base. We got a minimum to cover costs, but what we'll be doing is spending 3 weeks, one, addressing Black history, indigenous history, and then general superiority. That covers gender, that covers so many things. So we're gonna bring that collective healing to shift our collective consciousness together, and there is power and resonance when we come together. So if you're interested, see Kathy. She can sign you up. It's, like I said, love donation with a minimum donation. Last thing, energy flows where attention goes. We'll focus our attention on bringing unity, love, and oneness to areas that are calling those who are willing to join together and apply a healing solve, a shifting consciousness to bring more love and light into this conversation. Namaste. teach you a song if you don't know it. The chorus, I would love your help. It goes like this.
I must let you know that we matter.
That's it. If you can sing that with me, just the we
matter. Tell these people all right here. We matter. I must let you know that we
That's it.
It's a history of pain. Whoa, separation, it's insane. No. Have you bought into the lies? Black, white, whatever, never a reason to despise. Oh, you see, we're all part of the human race, one humanity, a truth we must face. If we can't learn to love each other, then we can't learn to forgive one another. Time to move on to a new way of being. The only solution is a new way of singing, yeah. I must let you know that we matter. There you go. Till these people love that we matter. Gotta face the truth somehow. We matter. Change what we do right now. We matter. See with the eyes of love. See with your heart. Let go of separation. We can all make a new start if we all come together. If we make love the norm, no matter what the border, no matter where you're from, then how can we let our fellow man suffer in poverty? How can we let our brothers and sisters die from greed? And how can we let our mothers and fathers go uncared for? And how can we let our children live in a world of war? No. I must let you know that we matter. Till these people know that we matter. Gotta face the truth somehow. We matter. Change what we do right now. We matter. Time to embrace a new way of being. One race, one world, one humanity. Let's learn to love ourselves, our creator, and every being. 'Cause we all matter in this one love for you and me. Yeah. I must let you know, come on. We matter. Till these people know that we matter. Gotta face the truth somehow. We matter. Change what we do right now. We matter. Peace starts with you. We matter. Hatred will never do. We matter. All of God's creation. We matter. We can change the situation. We matter. I must let you know that we matter.
Y'all sound so good. Thank you.